Welcome to this journey, Volume 2, in our deep dive into the composers who shook their own eras and continue to inspire our world today. In this second chapter, we are traveling further down the path of time, uncovering both the towering giants we missed and the brilliant, darker, or forgotten geniuses who carved out the soundscape of history. Our journey begins in the early 19th century. At this time, European classical music was completely dominated by German, Italian, and French traditions. But then came Mikhail Glinka. He made a bold choice to stop imitating the West and instead dig deep into the soil of his own homeland, drawing inspiration from raw Russian folklore, sweeping folk melodies, and ancient fairy tales. What makes Glinka truly stand out is that he single-handedly invented a brand new musical language. When you listen to the blistering pace of his overture to Ruslan and Lyudmila, you aren't just hearing a masterpiece of orchestral energy. You are hearing the birth of a musical superpower. Without Glinka, there would be no Tchaikovsky, no Stravinsky, and no Rimsky-Korsakov. He laid the foundation for everything that was to come. Next, we arrive in Paris in the mid-19th century. While his friends Franz Liszt and Frédéric Chopin were basking in the public spotlight, Charles-Valentin Alkan chose a completely different path. He became a mysterious hermit, retreating into isolation to push the absolute limits of what was physically possible on a piano. What makes Alkan stand out is the staggering, almost terrifying scale of his music. Long before the birth of heavy metal, Alkan was writing piano pieces that were dark, aggressively fast, and structurally monumental, like his Symphony for Solo Piano. He treated the keyboard like a full, roaring orchestra. For decades, his music was considered too difficult to even play, leaving him as one of history's most fascinating, overlooked, and enigmatic musical architects. Moving forward to 1824, we find ourselves in the Czech lands. At a time when political oppression threatened the identity of his nation, Bedřich Smetana decided to give his people a voice. He became the founding father of Czech national romanticism, turning the landscapes, legends, and rivers of his homeland into grand musical poetry. What makes Smetana stand out is not just his ability to paint vivid pictures with sound, like the sweeping, rolling themes of the river in Vltava, but the sheer determination behind it. Just like Beethoven, Smetana lost his hearing completely later in life. Yet, trapped in total terrifying silence, he went on to compose his greatest masterpieces. His music is a testament to the fact that true genius hears with the heart, long after the ears have failed. In 1833, we meet a man who redefined what it means to be a multi-talented genius. By day, Aleksandr Borodin was a world-class professor of chemistry in St. Petersburg, making breakthroughs in organic science. But in his spare time, he was a member of the Mighty Handful, a group of composers dedicated to creating a uniquely Russian style of classical music. What makes Borodin stand out is the staggering, cinematic scale of his melodies, written entirely as a hobby. His music feels vast, ancient, and deeply epic, conjuring images of sweeping steps and grand royal courts. His Polovtsian dances are so brilliantly catchy and beautiful that they were later adapted into hit Broadway tunes decades after his death. Borodin proved that you don't need to compose full-time to leave an eternal mark on music history. As we reach 1837, we encounter the fiery mastermind who organized and led the Russian musical rebellion. Mili Balakirev was the passionate dictator of the Mighty Handful. He fiercely pushed other composers to reject Western academic rules, all while demanding absolute, uncompromising perfection from himself. What makes Balakirev stand out is his obsession with blinding virtuosity and vivid, Eastern-inspired colors. He channeled this into Islami, an Oriental fantasy that became notorious as one of the most punishingly difficult, fingers-breaking piano pieces ever written. Balakirev's music is a roller coaster of exotic fire and relentless energy, proving that he didn't just talk about pushing boundaries. He shattered them completely. In 1838, we find ourselves in Germany during the golden age of Romanticism. Max Bruch was a traditionalist who believed that the true soul of music lay in beautiful, singing melodies. Sadly, he spent much of his life working in the long shadow of his contemporary, Johannes Brahms, which left much of his brilliant catalog overlooked. What makes Bruch stand out is his unmatched ability to channel raw, soaring human emotion. His first violin concerto and his Scottish fantasy are masterclasses in pure musical passion, balancing deep, melancholic introspection with explosive, fiery crescendos. Bruch didn't care about being an avant-garde rebel. He cared about touching the human soul, leaving behind some of the most deeply expressive string music ever written. Moving ahead to 1841, we return to the Czech lands to meet Antonín Dvořák. He began life working in his father's butcher shop, but his innate musical genius soon carried him to the global stage. Dvořák took the national romantic torch from Smetana and ran with it, eventually traveling all the way to America, where he immersed himself in African-American spirituals and Native American music. What makes Dvořák stand out is his effortless, unmatched gift for melody. He seamlessly wove raw, organic folk music into massive, sophisticated symphonic structures. His famous Symphony No. 9 from the New World is a masterclass in this crossover, a sweeping, nostalgic epic that perfectly captures the longing for home while staring out into a vast, undiscovered frontier. In 1857, we arrive in England. For nearly 2 centuries, Britain had relied on importing foreign talent for its classical music. But Edward Elgar changed everything. A self-taught son of a shopkeeper, he broke through class barriers to become the definitive voice of the Edwardian era. What makes Elgar stand out is his unique command over noble melancholy. His music balances a grand, statelig external dignity with a deeply vulnerable internal heartbreak. In his enigma variations, especially the breathtaking movement Nimrod, he created a sonic landscape of overwhelming emotional tinged. It is music that feels both monumentally royal and intimately personal, capturing the heavy ache of passing time. In 1865, we meet Paul Dukas. While the entire world knows him for the whimsical, frantic energy of the Sorcerer's Apprentice, immortalized by Disney, Dukas himself was a deeply complex intellectual and an absolute perfectionist. He was so intensely self-critical that later in life, he took the vast majority of his life's work and deliberately burned it to ashes, leaving only a handful of pieces behind. What makes Dukas stand out is his staggering orchestral color and structural brilliance. The rare masterworks that survive the flames, like his Symphony in C Major, reveal a French genius of immense power, shimmering textures, and vibrant energy. He wasn't just a storyteller, he was a meticulous craftsman who preferred total silence over putting out anything less than absolute perfection. In 1866, we encounter one of classical music's most tragic and beautiful secrets. Vasili Kalinnikov was a brilliant young Russian prodigy who spent his entire life battling extreme poverty and failing health. He died of tuberculosis at the young age of just 34, right on the brink of international fame. What makes Kalinnikov stand out is that despite his dark, painful reality, his music is filled with an radiant, soaring optimism. His Symphony No. 1 is an absolute goldmine of unforgettable Russian melodies, sweeping, romantic, and deeply cinematic. It carries the emotional weight of Tchaikovsky, but bursts with a bright, sunny resilience. He left the world far too soon, but the music he left behind refuses to be forgotten. In 1872, we meet Ralph Vaughan Williams. Fearing that the traditional soul of England was being erased by the industrial age, he decided to act. He packed his bags and traveled across the English countryside, writing down and saving hundreds of old forgotten folk songs from elderly villagers before they vanished forever. What makes Vaughan Williams stand out is his ability to create a sense of vast, timeless space. His music feels deeply atmospheric and cinematic, almost like watching the mist lift over a green valley. In masterpieces like The Lark Ascending and his Fantasia on a Theme by Thomas Tallis, he combined those ancient folk roots with lush, hypnotic string textures. inventing a signature British sound that feels completely magical and profound. In 1873, we encounter a German powerhouse of absolute musical complexity. Max Reger was a traditionalist with a modern brain. He was deeply obsessed with the intricate mathematical counterpoint of Johann Sebastian Bach. But he lived in an era of massive orchestras and exploding emotional drama. What makes Reger stand out is his sheer, uncompromising density and power. He took those strict, complex structures and dialed them up to the absolute limit with heavy, shifting, romantic harmonies. His organ and orchestral works are monumentally thick, complex, and intense, built like massive Gothic cathedrals made of sound. Reger's music is a thrilling challenge for the ears, packed with a heavy, restless energy that demands your full attention. In 1874, we meet Gustav Holst. While his contemporaries were focused on traditional romantic melodies, Holst turned his gaze toward the heavens. He was a deeply eccentric thinker, fascinated by astrology, Eastern philosophy, and the sheer scale of the universe, which led him to create a suite of music unlike anything the world had ever heard. What makes Holst stand out is his invention of a heavy, menacing, cosmic rawcraft. In his legendary masterpiece, The Planets, specifically Mars, the bringer of war, he unleashed an aggressive, asymmetrical 5/4 rhythm and brutal brass fanfares that perfectly captured the terrifying machinery of conflict. This single piece completely reshaped modern music, directly inspiring the epic, driving style of modern Hollywood film scores from Star Wars to Gladiator. Also in 1874, we meet the true founding father of American avant-garde music. Charles Ives was a highly successful insurance executive by day, but at night, he transformed into a radical musical scientist. Working in complete isolation from the European art world, he created sounds that were decades ahead of their time, purely for his own artistic satisfaction. What makes Ives stand out is his genius for controlled chaos. He loved the memory of small-town American life, especially the sound of two different marching bands playing different tunes as they passed each other in the street. He recreated this by deliberately croquande rhythms, layering completely different keys and melodies on top of each other at the same time. The result is a wild, visionary sonic collage that is uniquely American, fiercely independent, and utterly brilliant. In 1875, we discover a hidden gem from Lithuania. Mikhail Konstantinas Čiurlionis was a rare phenomenon in art history, a man who was equally brilliant as both a symbolist painter and a classical composer. He suffered from synesthesia, seeing colors as sounds and hearing music as colors, which led him to create art where the boundaries between the two completely dissolved. What makes Čiurlionis stand out is the deeply mystical, atmospheric quality of his symphonic poetry. In masterworks like In the Forest and the Sea, he uses the orchestra to paint vast, impressionistic landscapes filled with ancient Baltic folklore and cosmic mystery. His music doesn't just tell a story. It pulls you into a shimmering, dreamlike trance, leaving him as one of the most uniquely poetic voices of the turn of the century. In 1881, we meet a fierce pioneer of the modern era. Béla Bartók believed that the polished classical music of the concert halls had lost its primal energy. So, he packed a primitive phonograph and traveled deep into the remote villages of Hungary and Transylvania, recording the raw, unaltered folk songs of the peasants before they disappeared. What makes Bartók stand out is how he transformed those ancient discoveries. Instead of making them pretty, he unleashed their dark, asymmetric rhythms and biting dissonances. His music is incredibly percussive, mysterious, and deeply atmospheric, creating an eerie intensity that modern directors still use to evoke pure dread. Bartók didn't just study history, he captured the wild, untamed heartbeat of the earth. In 1884, we meet Charles Griffes. While European giants like Debussy and Ravel were defining Impressionism in Paris, Griffes was quietly developing his own, unique version of it across the Atlantic. He began his career in traditional German styles, but quickly broke free, fascinated by the exotic scales of East Asia and the glowing, poetic imagery of myth. What makes Griffes stand out is his command over dark, glittering mystique. Pieces like The White Peacock and The Pleasure Dome of Kubla Khan don't just shimmer, they carry a heavy, intoxicating twilight mood. Tragically, just as his visionary style was gaining global recognition, he died of influenza at only 35 years old. He left behind a brief but hauntingly beautiful legacy, proving that America could produce Impressionism with a fierce, independent soul. From the foundational roots of Glinka to the haunting twilight landscapes of Charles Griffes, these 17 composers prove that music history is far wider and darker than the mainstream concert halls would lead you to believe. They took the rules of their time, shattered them, and left behind echoes that still resonate today. Thank you for joining us on this second volume of our musical deep dive. Keep exploring, keep listening, and we will see you in the next chapter.